This is Mr. Creepy Official. True horror begins, now. If you're brave enough to survive this story, prove it, like, share, and subscribe before the darkness finds you.
The town at the end of Route 19 isn't on any map. The first time I saw the sign for Route 19, I wasn't even supposed to be on that stretch of highway. My name's Ghoul, and I drive long-haul delivery runs, mostly food supply to rural stores across the state. It was supposed to be a straight shot, 3 towns, 1 overnight stay, back home before the weekend. But the GPS started to flicker right after I passed the last rest stop. 1 minute it showed a clear blue line, the next, it glitched into static and recentered me on a road that didn't exist. Recalculating, the synthetic voice said, though it sounded oddly strained. Then, turn right onto Route 19. I almost ignored it. Almost. But the main highway was closed for construction, orange cones stretching into the distance, so I followed the detour sign. The asphalt narrowed, trees crowded closer, and after 15 minutes my cell service dropped to 0. The further I went, the quieter it got. Even the crickets stopped. Only the hum of my truck engine filled the air. I glanced at the fuel gauge, half a tank. Enough to reach the next town. Then the fog rolled in. Thick, pale, and swirling against the headlights like something alive. The world turned white. I slowed to a crawl, hands tight on the steering wheel. A minute later, a figure appeared at the roadside. A man, or maybe a woman, standing motionless in the mist. I braked hard, heart thudding. The figure didn't move. Didn't even look at me. When I blinked, they were gone. That was when I noticed the sign. Wooden, old, the paint nearly peeled away. Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 212. I hadn't seen that name on any of my route sheets. The town appeared out of the fog like a mirage. Dim yellow windows. A gas pump that looked older than me. Wooden houses lining a narrow main street. Everything had that faded, stuck-in-time look, like the 1950s never ended here. I pulled up at the gas station. The attendant, an elderly man in greasy overalls, stepped out slowly. "Evenin'," he said. His voice sounded hollow, like he hadn't spoken in a while. I asked for directions to the highway. He just stared at me, then said, "Highway's gone. You best get a room before dark." "Gone?" I repeated. "How can a highway be gone?" He only smiled, too many teeth, and pointed toward a sign half hidden by ivy. Harlow's Motel, vacancy. I should have left. Every instinct told me so. But the fog had thickened, and my truck's headlights barely reached 10 feet. I drove to the motel. The lobby was empty except for a bell on the counter and a guest book coated in dust. When I rang the bell, a woman stepped out from the shadows behind the desk. She looked mid-30s, but her eyes were off. Too still. Too glassy. "Need a room?" she asked softly. "Just for the night," I said. "I'll be heading out first thing in the morning." Her smile didn't move her eyes. "You won't," she murmured. Then she handed me a brass key tagged with a wooden fob, room 5. The hallway carpet muffled every step. Wallpaper peeled in curling strips. My room smelled faintly of rain and something sweet, like rotting flowers. I set my duffel down and sat on the bed. That's when I noticed the painting above the headboard. It showed a road twisting into a forest, and at the end of that road, a cluster of houses, the same ones I'd just driven past. The brushstrokes were blurred at the edges, but the sign in the painting was perfectly legible. Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 211. I frowned. The sign outside had said 212. At 2:13 a.m., something woke me. A knock. 3 sharp taps on the door. Hello? I called out. No answer. I checked the peephole, nothing but darkness. Then another knock, softer this time, from inside the room. I spun around. The sound had come from the closet. My breath fogged in the cold air. I reached for the handle and pulled the door open. Inside were rows of coats. And a mirror nailed to the back wall. But it wasn't reflecting me. It showed the room as it was, except there was someone standing behind me in the reflection. A tall shadow, face featureless, head tilted. I turned around fast. The room was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, the shadow was closer. I stumbled out of the room, down the hallway, past the front desk. No sign of the woman. The fog outside glowed faintly, like it was lit from within. Every house window was dark except one, at the end of the street, a small diner with a red neon sign that read, "Open." I ran toward it. Inside, a dozen people sat in silence, cups of untouched coffee in front of them. Their skin was pale as candle wax, eyes unfocused. A man at the counter finally looked up. "You new here?" "I just need to get back to the highway," I said. "Something's wrong with this place." He smiled faintly. "Ain't nothin' wrong. You just ain't used to it yet." "What is this town?" I demanded. "Why isn't it on any map?" He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "Because it moves." The man at the diner didn't move after he said it. He just sat there, eyes fixed on me as if waiting for something to click in my head. "It moves?" I asked. "What do you mean, it moves?" He stirred his coffee once, though the spoon made no sound. "When the fog comes in, the town shifts. Highways change. People change. You'll see." I tried to laugh it off, but no one else in the diner reacted. A dozen faces, motionless, watching me but not at me. The clock on the wall ticked irregularly. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats, pause, and I realized the second hand kept jumping backward. A woman in a faded waitress uniform appeared beside me. "Coffee?" she asked, voice flat. "No, thanks. I just want directions." She pointed to the window. Outside, the fog pressed against the glass like a living thing. "Road's gone until morning." I went back to the motel before dawn. The street lamps flickered red instead of yellow now, and I could swear some of the houses had changed places. Room 5 was exactly as I'd left it, except for the painting. The sign in the painting read, "Population 210." I didn't sleep. At sunrise, the fog began to thin, and I drove out of town. The road twisted through the trees exactly as before, but when I reached the highway, the GPS glitched again and recentered me on Route 19. Only this time the sign behind me said, "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 209. By noon I'd convinced myself it was stress, exhaustion, maybe carbon monoxide from the truck. I pulled into a rest area, splashed water on my face, and opened my delivery log to check the route. Every page after stop number 3 was blank. Even the ink looked wet, as if it had just been erased. My phone vibrated, no signal, but a notification appeared anyway. From, unknown. "Turn around. You left something behind." I dropped the phone. When I picked it up again, the message was gone. That evening I reached the next real town, or at least I thought I did, gas stations, people, noise. But when I stopped for food, the cashier asked, "How long you been stuck up there?" "Up where?" He looked at me oddly. "Route 19. Nobody takes that road anymore." "Why not?" He hesitated. "Because it never ends where you think it will." Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the knock, 3 sharp taps, the same rhythm from the motel door. At 2:13 a.m., I woke to see my truck lights flashing by themselves. The windshield fogged from the inside, and someone had traced words into the condensation. Population 208. I wiped it away. It smeared like blood. I tried to call my dispatcher in the morning, no answer. I checked my map again. Route 19 wasn't marked at all now. In its place was an unlabeled gray line. Curiosity, or stupidity, won. I turned back. The fog waited at the county line. When I drove through it, the radio crackled to life. Static at first, then voices. Overlapping, hundreds whispering at once. One voice cut through them all, a woman's, calm and clear. "Room 5 still vacant, ghoul." The dashboard clock froze at 2:13. I slammed the brakes, jumped out, and there it was. The same wooden sign, the same peeling paint. "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 207. The gas station attendant was waiting. Same greasy overalls, same hollow smile. "Evenin'," he said, as though no time had passed. "You left too soon last night." "This isn't possible," I muttered. I left. He tilted his head. "No one leaves until it's even." "Even what?" He didn't answer. Just pointed toward the motel. The fog thickened behind me, sealing off the road. Inside the lobby, the guest book was open. A fresh entry in neat handwriting read, "Ghoul, checked out, 2:13 a.m. My heart stopped. There was another line beneath it. "Room 5, vacant. Population 206. The woman stepped out from the shadows again, the same eerie calm in her voice. "You see now? Every time someone leaves, the number falls. What happens when it reaches 0? I asked. Her smile didn't move her eyes. "Then it starts over." That night, I tried to drive away again, full throttle through the fog. The world stretched like elastic, houses repeating, signs duplicating, my own taillights looping ahead of me until I realized I was following myself. The engine died. Silence. In the rearview mirror, the shadow from the closet sat in the back seat, head tilted just like before. "You left something behind," it whispered. "Your place." When dawn came, there was no sun, only a gray light that seemed to seep from the fog itself. The motel sign still buzzed faintly. I stood in the doorway of room 5, holding my keys, wondering if maybe I'd finally lost my mind. Then I heard them. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Shuffling, uneven, circling the building. I went to the window and peeled back the curtain. The parking lot was full. People stood shoulder to shoulder, all facing the motel, all staring at the rooms. Their skin looked paper-thin, veins showing blue beneath. Every few seconds, one of them whispered a number. 205. 205. Over and over, like a prayer. I backed away from the glass. The floorboards creaked under my feet, and in the reflection of the TV screen I saw the door handle turning, slowly, deliberately. "Leave me alone!" I shouted. The handle stilled. The whispering stopped. When I looked again, the crowd was gone. Only the fog remained, pressed close to the window like frost. At the diner that morning, the same waitress poured me coffee that smelled faintly of earth. I asked her what was happening to the town. She said, "Every few years, Harlow's Bend drifts. It takes whoever it needs to keep the count steady. You came in when we were one too many." "One too many what?" "Breathers." Her eyes flicked toward the door. Outside, the sign creaked in the wind. "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 205. I left the diner and walked the main street. The buildings looked less solid than before, like painted scenery ready to peel away. When I touched the wooden siding of the general store, my fingers sank in slightly, as if the wall were soft clay. Inside the store was a man with no reflection. I didn't notice until I saw myself alone in the mirror behind the counter. He spoke without moving his mouth. "You keep trying to leave." "I have to. There's nothing beyond the fog anymore." He handed me something, a small brass coin stamped with a number, 205. "When the count reaches 0, he said, "give this back." Then he was gone. That night I stayed awake on the bed, watching the mirror. The painting above the headboard had changed again. The houses were burning now, little orange smudges of flame, and the sign in the painting read, "Population 204. I felt cold fingers brush my shoulder. A voice whispered right next to my ear, calm, almost kind. "It takes one every night." I turned. No one there. But the closet door was open an inch, and from inside came the sound of breathing, slow, wet, steady. I backed toward the hall, then stopped. The breathing grew louder until it filled the entire room. Then, silence. When I looked again, the mirror was blank. My reflection was gone. I ran outside, straight into the fog. The town stretched endlessly now, streets looping back on themselves. At the center of it all stood a church that hadn't been there before. Bells tolled somewhere above the mist, a dull, heavy sound that shook the ground. Inside, rows of pews faced an altar covered in nameplates, each one carved with numbers. The first read 212, the last 205. A single empty space waited below it. Something moved behind the altar. The air shimmered, and the woman from the motel stepped out, her voice echoing unnaturally in the vaulted room. "You shouldn't have come back, ghoul. The town likes you." "What are you?" I asked. She smiled. "Caretaker. Collector. It doesn't matter what name you use." "Why the numbers?" "Because names fade. Only the count remains." She held out her hand. In her palm lay another brass coin, identical to mine but engraved 204. "Trade places," she whispered. The church lights went out. When I woke, I was lying in room 5 again. Morning light, real sunlight, streamed through the curtains. My truck was parked outside, engine cold but full of gas. For a moment I thought it was over. Then I saw the mirror. My reflection stared back, but its lips were still moving after I'd stopped speaking. Outside, the sign read, "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 204. The sunlight didn't last. By noon, the sky dimmed again, the color of rotted parchment. I kept staring at that damn sign outside the motel window, Population 204. Someone had been taken. Or maybe, replaced. I stepped out, clutching the brass coin in my pocket like a talisman. The fog hovered at the edge of town. Thick and deliberate, as if it were waiting. No birds, no wind. Only the faint hum of the motel's flickering sign. At the far end of Main Street, there was a narrow path behind the church, the one I'd seen last night. The same place where the woman had offered me the other coin. Something inside me whispered that answers were buried there. The path led to a half-collapsed house swallowed by vines. Its door hung open, groaning like it had been waiting for me. Inside, dust danced in the slanted light. A child's toy lay broken in the corner, a small wooden car with the number 199 burned into its side. My stomach twisted. A desk sat against the far wall, covered in old, water-damaged journals. They smelled like smoke and mold. The top one was labeled, Ledger of the Count, 1897. I flipped it open. The handwriting was shaky but neat. Another gone tonight. The fog demanded one. We drew lots. The preacher says the number must always hold steady. If we ever fall below the mark, it comes for all of us. The next entry was written in darker ink, pressed so hard it tore the paper. Population reached 200. Bells rang for 7 nights. The dead walked until we corrected the count. A chill crawled up my spine. I looked around the room again. The walls were carved with dozens of numbers, all scratched over each other, like the town had been trying to forget but couldn't. Then I saw movement in the corner. A woman sat there, or what was left of her, skin stretched too tight, eyes milky and wet. Her mouth moved, but her voice came from everywhere at once. You're reading our book, ghoul. I stumbled back. What happened to you? We stayed too long. The air thickened. Behind her, the wall began to ripple, numbers appearing one by one like fresh wounds. 203. 202. 201. Each time a number faded, she twitched violently. When you came, she hissed, you added to the count. Now the town must choose who leaves. She lunged forward, her face splitting in half like melting wax, revealing a void of whispering mouths beneath. I dropped the ledger and bolted. Outside, the church bells began to toll again. The townsfolk were gathering in the square. Same blank faces, same slow rhythm. One by one, they turned toward me. One by one, they whispered. 204. The woman from the motel stepped through the crowd, her eyes black as smoke. You shouldn't have read the ledger, she said softly. Now the town remembers. What happens when it remembers? I asked. She smiled faintly. Then it begins to rewrite itself. The buildings around us started to distort. Roofs sagged. Windows stretched into faces. The ground beneath my feet rippled like a living thing. I ran for the truck. The key turned, but the engine only coughed out fog. Thick, heavy, choking fog that poured from the vents. And then, from the rearview mirror, a reflection smiled back at me, my face, but pale, eyes glowing faint blue. It whispered, "You shouldn't have taken the coin." My hands went numb. I looked down. The brass coin had melted into my palm, leaving the number 204 burned into my skin. Outside, the people began to chant. Louder, faster. 204, 204, 204. The ground opened beneath the church, swallowing its foundation whole. The bells fell silent. I tried to drive, but every road led me back to the same intersection, the same gas station, the same blinking sign. Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 204. I screamed, slammed the wheel, and the horn echoed through the emptiness. For a moment, everything went still. Then, the radio crackled. A man's voice came through, distorted and distant. "You can't leave, ghoul. You are the count now." That night, I stayed in room 5 again. The mirror had changed once more. It showed the town, but from above. Hundreds of small, white lights flickering in the fog. Each one pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. And then, on. One went out. A knock came at my door. I didn't answer. It came again, harder. Then, a voice, familiar, trembling. "Let me in. It's you." I froze. It was my voice. "Let me in, ghoul." The count's wrong again. The knocking turned to pounding. The door splintered. And when it gave way, I saw me standing there, pale, blood dripping from my eyes, smiling too wide. "We need one more." The fog started breathing. That's the only way I can describe it, like the whole town exhaled at once. The curtains in room 5 fluttered inward though every window was shut tight. The air pressed heavy against my chest, carrying the faint scent of metal and rain. The mirror across the room flickered again. My reflection stood still this time, but the room behind it didn't match mine anymore. It was darker, older, walls rotting, floor soaked with something black. And then, a bell rang. Once. Deep and distant, like it came from under the earth. The sound made the window glass hum. I stepped outside. The sign buzzed faintly above the road. "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 203. My stomach turned. Someone else was gone. But the town looked wrong now, stretched. The main street no longer ended where it should. It kept winding through the fog, like it was growing. I climbed into my truck. The engine groaned to life, coughing smoke. The gas gauge was full. I didn't think, I just drove. The road wound through endless gray. Buildings blurred past, repeating like a broken film reel, the same diner, same church, same gas station. Every time I passed the church, the bell tolled again. Population 202. Static crackled on the radio. Then a voice whispered through. "Stop running, ghoul. The town moves with you." I slammed the dial off. The fog ahead pulsed faintly, glowing with shapes that weren't quite human. Limbs too long, faces melting like wax, whispering in a low chant that vibrated through my skull. They were counting. 202, 201, 2. I floored the gas, but the truck slowed instead. The needle on the speedometer spun backward, even though the wheels were screaming against the road. And then, the fog parted. I found myself in front of the motel again. The neon sign buzzed louder this time, the letters flickering in a new pattern. "Welcome back, ghoul." My reflection stood outside the room, waiting for me. The same face. The same eyes. But it smiled differently now, too calm, too knowing. He held up his hand. The number 201 was carved into his palm. "You shouldn't have tried to leave," he said. "You broke the count." "What does that mean?" He tilted his head, listening. Somewhere in the fog, the bell rang twice. "Below 200, he whispered, "the town wakes up." I looked past him. The sky was splitting open, cracks glowing red beneath the gray. Buildings bent, stretching like they were made of clay. People crawled out of the ground, faceless, mouths opening wide in silent screams. The caretaker woman appeared again, her dress soaked in black fog. She looked almost human now, almost kind. "You can still fix it," she said. "How?" "Replace what's been lost." Her hand brushed my arm, it burned cold, searing my skin. I looked down. The number 201 was carved into me now, glowing faint blue. She smiled faintly. "One more, and the balance will hold." The air filled with whispers. I turned and saw the crowd again, the people of Harlow's Bend, eyes empty, skin pale as salt. They stared at me with the same expression. 200, 200. The church bell screamed a third time. My reflection stepped forward. "Don't fight it. You're part of it now. I'm not staying here." I shouted. The ground cracked beneath my feet. Hands reached out from the earth, cold, bone-white, grasping my legs. The fog coiled tighter. My reflection smiled wider, splitting into dozens of versions of me, circling closer. "You can't leave, ghoul. You were chosen. You are the next count." Their voices overlapped until it was one endless, droning whisper. The world around me began to collapse, folding in on itself. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was the motel sign flickering one final time. "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 200. And then, silence. When I woke up, I was standing behind the motel counter. My clothes were clean. The fog was gone. The sky was pale blue. Keys hung neatly behind me, labeled 1 through 6. A car pulled in. A man stepped out, looking tired, lost. He smiled awkwardly and asked, "Hey, is there a room open for the night?" My voice came out calm. Too calm. "Sure," I said. "Room 5's available." He took the key. I watched him walk toward the door. And when I looked at the sign again, it buzzed faintly. "Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 201. I don't remember how long I've been behind this counter. Days, weeks, maybe years. The sky doesn't move here. The sun never really sets, it just dims, like a dying bulb. Every so often, another traveler comes through. Lost, hungry, confused. They all ask the same thing. "What town is this?" And I always give the same answer, voice steady, heart hollow. "Harlow's Bend." Then I hand them a key. Always room 5. The first night I saw the woman again, she was standing outside in the fog, her dress soaked black, her face flickering like static. "You're doing well," she said softly. "I don't even know what I'm doing anymore." She smiled faintly. "You're keeping the balance. The count holds steady because of you." I looked at the sign through the glass. Population 201. Why can't it end? I asked. She tilted her head, eyes glimmering. Because the world beyond the fog depends on this one. Every soul lost out there finds its way here. Every number kept here keeps their world from slipping into ours. I swallowed hard. So, if the count ever hits 0? Her smile vanished. The bells of 0 ring only once. That night, I dreamt of the town before it fell apart, sunny streets, people laughing, real light in their eyes. But under the laughter, I heard bells tolling. 6 of them. Each one deeper, darker, closer. When I woke, The mirror across the lobby was cracked. Behind my reflection, I saw dozens of faint shapes staring back, all of them me. And the sign outside now read, Population 100. The number had fallen overnight. The fog started creeping closer, swallowing buildings block by block. I could hear the screams now, muffled, far away, like people being dragged through water. I ran into the street, shouting for anyone still alive. But the town was folding in on itself. Windows melted. Doors vanished. The church bell began to ring. Once, twice, 3 times. With each toll, the number dropped lower. Population 80. Population 60. Population 30. The world around me shook violently, colors draining until everything was gray. The road split open and the fog bled upward in slow, swirling tendrils. And then I saw her again, the caretaker, standing by the church steps, her eyes bleeding black tears. "It's too late now," she whispered. "The count is breaking. What happens when it hits 0? I screamed. She smiled. Then the fog remembers where it came from. The ground split beneath me. I fell into the dark. I landed in water, cold, thick, endless. Around me floated hundreds of faces, whispering numbers through shattered teeth. 20, 19, 18. Their eyes were blank, mouths still moving after their voices stopped. In the distance, I saw the motel glowing faintly beneath the water, sign still buzzing. Population 5. The voices grew louder. 4. 3. 2. I gasped, choking on the black water. My skin burned where the number was carved into my palm. It pulsed brighter, faster, until I thought my bones would split. Then, silence. Everything stopped. The fog froze midair. The world hung still. The sign flickered one last time. Population 1. I floated there, weightless. Then I heard it, the final bell. When it rang, the fog exploded outward. It didn't just swallow the town, it tore through everything. Roads vanished. Forests melted. The horizon folded in. The sound was so loud it felt like the universe itself cracking open. And through the roar, I heard the caretaker's voice. "Every story needs someone to remember it, ghoul. You keep it alive." The world dimmed to gray. Buildings dissolved. Light faded. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing beside a road sign. Route 19, next town, Harlow's Bend, 2 miles. The road looked familiar. My truck was parked on the shoulder. The fog was rolling in again. And on the edge of the sign, freshly carved, was one last number. Population 0. The fog whispered my name. Ghoul. I turned, and through the mist, I saw lights, a small town glowing faintly, waiting. The same diner. The same church. The same motel. The sign outside buzzed back to life, letters burning red in the dark. Welcome to Harlow's Bend. Population 205. And then I understood, the count never ends. It only resets. And someone always has to open the door. Candle, end of story.